Hello everyone, welcome to the next session on SAP UI5. In the last session, we spoken about basics of UI5 framework. In today's session, we will go ahead and discuss introduction of model view controller architecture, and we will create a simple UI5 application using model view controller architecture. MVC approach is one of the best approach to develop any UI application. So let's start and discuss what MVC is all about and how can we utilize the MVC approach to create our UI5 application which follows the MVC standard. Just to quickly brief through you, we have created a simple application so far where all the code what we have created inside index.html file. This index.html file is including a JavaScript code which initializes the UI5 control by using the UI5 library. So here is the library name SAP UI Commons, and text field is the name of the API or UI control which I want to show on this screen. Then we pass the ID of the control, comma, we pass the properties of the UI5 control. Similar to this, I have also created another control, and here I'm passing the name of the library and then again the API name. Right after this, I am passing the ID of the control, comma, the properties of the control. So here text is the property and press is an event name. An event is an activity which is performed by user on the UI control. So for the button control, when user click on the button, press is the event which gets triggered. And when this event gets triggered, I am making a call to an anonymous function which displays you the data. In last class, we also spoken about how to get the access of object of a control. So there are two ways, either the object is directly available or you have sap.ui.getCore which gives you the object of runtime application instance, and then you have byId method in which you can pass the ID of the object to get the object ID. And then we're using JavaScript chaining to get the value from the object directly. So this is what we have done so far. Okay. Now, finally, we are placing the object inside the div element of the body of HTML. This is what we have done so far. Okay. Now we have created two div elements onto the screen, and then we are just displaying this information on the screen. Okay. This is what we have done so far. Let's have a look at the response what comes. So we just right click on the project and say web app preview to look at the response of this. So let me just show you the response now. So you can see this is how it looks like. We just enter some sample data and click on the button, and you can see this data is displayed inside the pop-up. So this is what we have done so far in the last session. In today's session, we will start with MVC approach. Now before I proceed, there is one question here from Raj. So Raj is following my sessions through videos, and Raj has sent me an email asking a question, and it's a very valid question which makes a lot of sense to discuss in the class and all of us to aware about it. So let's look at the question sent by Raj first of all. So Raj is writing to me saying that Anubhav, we are actually adding these controls inside the div element by calling the place at API, which means if I have 20 different controls, I need to create 20 div tags in my HTML body, right? Very valid point. So you can see here where we had a button and we had a div tag, and the moment we added an input field, we also created another div tag, which clearly means as many number of controls you're going to add, those many number of div tags is what you got to add to the body. So is this a good approach? Not at all. You're writing the UI5 code plus you're also writing the HTML at the same time, which is not a good approach at all. It leads to high maintenance. Raj is also saying, Anubhav, is it possible to align the input field with the button? So basically Raj wants the input field and the button all in the same line. Maybe to show this much better, let me just create a small label. So I'm going to create a small label also just to show it the alignment better. So I'm creating O label 1 equals to new SAP UI commons dot text view control or label control. If I do have, yes, we have a label control, and for this label control, if you scroll down, you can see the property name called text property to allow the labels. Yeah, text is the property name. So just come here and just put curly braces and say text property, and I can say user name. That's the label I'm adding. Now to add this username, we basically go back and we just create another div tag here. So this is what Raj is actually asking. So for every control, I'm actually creating a div element on the body of HTML, and then for this div element, what's the ID is my label. I'm going to place this control, which is O label 1 dot place at inside that div element in the body of HTML. Yeah, and then we come back and refresh. You will see this label have come up, but there's no alignment here. The label comes and then the input field comes in a new line, and then this button comes in. How do you align the content? So these are all the two major questions which Raj would like to know. Good question, Raj. Thanks for bringing these points into the session. It's really helpful. So let me start with this. Question number 1. For every element which we are creating, so element here means UI element, guys. Okay, it is nothing to do with HTML element. Every element, UI element which we are creating, we are actually creating a div element, right? So for every element which we are creating, we have to create a div element in HTML. Is there any better way? Second question which comes is, how do I align my content? So I can say, Raj, both of these questions are very relevant, and actually you can achieve both of these things together with a single option. It's called layout. So what is layout? Layout is nothing but it is an approach in terms of layout control which allows us to group and arrange the content in various ways. So there are variety of layouts available in SAP UI5. Once we will proceed, we'll explore a lot of different types of layouts. But one of the most popular layout is called matrix layout. So we can actually arrange our content together and group all of them together in a single layout control. Yeah, in a single layout control. So we can actually do that through the layout. Yeah, this is how we are going to do that. So I'm going to show you first the matrix layout. So what is matrix layout? Matrix layout is absolutely like a table. So you can see here I have created a table, and you can imagine this as a matrix layout. And let's imagine I'm dividing this whole table into 3 parts. Basically the entire width of my page I'm dividing into 3 parts. The first part is of 25% width, second part again 25% of the width, and then remaining 50% in the third part. and then I will keep the first part empty when I'm putting my elements, and I put my label here, and I will put my input field here, and then I'll keep this also null and this also null, and then below the input field I want to put my button. These are all the three controls we have. So I am creating this as a matrix, and this matrix I'm dividing into three parts, which covers the entire 100% width of the page, and then I'm arranging these controls inside the matrix layout. So matrix layout as a whole is a UI control. So then later point of time when I want to place inside the body of HTML, I will not place individual controls because they all are part of matrix. So I'll place this whole matrix inside the body of HTML. So this way I don't really need to create multiple div elements into the body. I just have to create one which was already there. That was only for the matrix layout. The whole layout I'm going to place inside the body one shot, and then I also get an alignment properly for these controls. Yeah. So with one solution we target two problems. So let's go ahead and try to achieve this. The matrix layout. Typically we should use sap.ui.layout library. So, but I will show you right now using directly the comments, or maybe we can also use SAP UI layout library to actually achieve the matrix layout. So let me come back and now add this control which is matrix layout. So let me just do that. So say var o layout equals to new sap.ui.layout dot, and I'm just going to do control space, and now I can really add in here the layout. So let me just add matrix layout dot sap.ui.layout dot. Oops, I don't have the matrix layout here. You can see I have splitter layout, I have horizontal layout, vertical layout, form layout, grid layout, but I don't have a matrix one. So maybe I just go to SAP UI Commons itself dot layout dot. In this I do have different variety of layout, so I will use matrix layout here. Yeah, that's my matrix layout. Let me just provide an ID for this layout matrix. Not necessarily you need an ID, but it's good practice to provide ID for every control. Put curly braces, and now we will see what properties does this matrix layout really need. Yeah. So it basically need three property. One is width, one is width. Yeah. So what is width? Width is basically an array which says how I would like to divide the whole row. Each row should be divided into three parts. So first part is I'm saying 25%. Second part I'm saying again 25%. And third part I'm saying 50%. So I'm basically dividing my widths into three parts. And then I do have the whole width of this matrix layout as 100%. So whole matrix layout is actually of width 100%, and I divided it into three parts. Now I'm just going to add the row. So I say create and do control space, and you can see there's a method called create row. So if you remember just now we saw in the picture, we have a row, and this is the row which is containing inside these controls. So when I'm creating this row, the first element of the row is null. Second element is going to be my label. Third element is going to be my input field. So let's add these three things inside this row. So first is null, comma, I'm adding next is my label control. So O label of 1, and then I'm adding O input control, which is object of my input inside this. That's my first row. I'm going to create the next row. So O layout dot create row. Can anybody tell me the content of second row? How are you going to add the content of second row? What will be the input for second row content? Anybody? Perfect answer, Manoj and Shekhar. Shaileja, it's a wrong answer from your side. You're not calling any API. We are just adding these controls inside the matrix. So we will pass null, comma, the Spider-Man, which is nothing but your button object. And once you do that, you have got your layout prepared. And then finally, you actually don't need this place add for Spider-Man, neither for input field nor for label control. You just need to place this whole layout now inside the body of HTML. So just call place add for this guy, because this guy itself includes everything for you. Yeah, and let's just add it inside the content, and that's it. We don't need these two HTML elements as well. Control Shift slash just to comment out these elements. Not really required. Just save this. Let's come back and refresh the screen and see what happens. So I come back. Oops, something is wrong. You can see it's not really working. I press F12 and see the problem. So you can see uncaught error 25%, 25%, and then there is 50. Yeah, or is of type object, expected CSS size for property widths of element. So basically I missed this percentage here. That's why it's not accepting. I save it again. You can see this is how console will help you to find out the errors. Okay. So now come back. I save it and let's refresh. And wow, there you go. You can see, guys, username label and the input field in a single line, and the button which we have is just beneath the input field. Yeah, just beneath the input field. Now that's a question for all of you. Let's see who can answer. I want to put the button just beneath the label. I don't want to put the button beneath the input field. Which line number shall I change and what should I change? Anybody? I want to put my button beneath the label. Line number 40, okay. And what change should we do? Right, you're all right. We got to place the button as position number 2. You're right. So let's place it here. And then you can, of course, on a safer side, put a null here just to see that, last content is null. And just save this and refresh on the left, and you see the button is moved below the label. So that's how you really arrange your elements inside the layout, thanks to the layout, and also helping me to add the entire content in just one div. You don't have to create now multiple div tags at all. Not really required, because you just have one div element and it including the entire layout. And let's look at the DOM. So right click here and say inspect the element to look at the DOM here. So you can see this is the DOM we have, guys. This is the DOM we have, and now inside this DOM we are actually having the content. So you see what exactly matrix layout turns to be. Matrix layout is nothing but it's a table. See, it's a table. This whole thing is a table. So you remember yesterday's class we called that UI5 renderer, which is part of runtime. UI5 runtime library is actually capable of converting your code into the equivalent HTML code. So it actually converted your JavaScript code to a table control, which table contains multiple rows. So it contains basically 2 rows here, because you have added 2 rows inside this matrix, and then each row contains the cells. So basically we have 3 cells. First cell is first 20%, second cell is next 20%, and third last cell is 50% of the page. So these 3 cells are created, and inside these cells now you have your label control and your button control placed inside. So all the HTML, equivalent HTML is generated by UI5 framework for you, and it's been sent to the browser, so browser can display this. So that's the major importance for using SAP UI5 framework. It generates the required HTML plus CSS for you, and since your browser directly understand that, you got to get the display for the same. Yeah. Now, what if the UI element is greater than the width? You can actually control this width. You can also increase the width. Yeah, it's your choice. Typically it won't happen. Typically it won't happen. Okay, but you can control the width. Then you probably put the whole UI element in one single line. whole UI element in one single line. That you have to do it if it is quite big. Yeah. So it depends on the requirement. You can create another layout, and in that, so you can also merge multiple matrix layouts also. So I create one matrix layout with 100% width with 100% area occupying by widths, and then one more with dividing, and then one more with dividing. And then all three of them I can put inside another matrix layout, and that I will put it on the div element. Yeah. So I can group, I can adjust the way I want. It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Now there's one more question here from Narsimha Rao. Do we need to give widths and width both? What if 100% is not mentioned? Nothing will happen. Just on the safer side, I did that. If I just remove this and refresh, you see it still produces the same output because the default value for the width property is already 100%. Nothing will happen. Yeah, but and even you don't give this, nothing will happen. Let me comment it out, refresh, and you can see it's just adjusting it the way it is really, the way you are adding the elements. Null, first you are adding a null, and then you are adding a label, and then you are adding an input. Doesn't really make sense, but still it's a good practice that you provide the right property set so that you don't get into issues in future. Yeah, that's a good practice. Okay, now there's one question here from Madhu. How do we place two matrix layout of different row size in a single line? It's very simple. You can actually create two matrix layout and put both of them in a vertical layout. Okay, so there is another type of layout called vertical layout. You can actually create a vertical layout and place both the matrix layouts inside the vertical layout. Let me just show you it quickly. So let me just go back and now create here another matrix layout. So I just use var o matrix 2 equals to new SAP UI commons dot layout dot matrix layout. Never copy paste the code, guys. Never copy. You should write every single line of code yourself. Somebody who is just doing copy paste, they are not really learning the code. They're just fooling you, or you yourself fooling yourself. That's never do that. Until you learn it, never copy paste the code. Copy paste is not the right way of learning UI5. So I'm just saying width is 100%, and I'm also saying the overall width which I'm also going to occupy is also 100% width. Yeah, that's what I'm really doing it. So both the widths are 100%. So basically it's a layout with 100% occupancy of the entire page. Yeah. Then I can really add a content. It's going to be, of course, a single content. So I can say create row, and I'm just going to add a button inside. So let me just add a control object. So new SAP UI commons dot button, and just give the text of the button, and let me just say this is whole row button. And right now I'm just not giving any action for this button right now, so just added this as a button. So I added a matrix layout 2. Inside that I've added a button control right away. Yeah, so this is also possible because you have an object, and this object is passed as a parameter inside this create row method. Either you do it in this way or this way, both are okay. So it's just a different way of writing code style. Yeah, now we added two matrix layout. Let's create a vertical layout. So say var o vertical layout equals to SAP UI commons, and this time let me show you it. Since I do have an opportunity, I can use SAP UI layout library, and I can say vertical layout and just say verti, and I can just pass inside this vertical layout curly braces, and let's see the properties for vertical layout. So I just hover my mouse over vertical layout. Okay, it's not really showing me the property, so then maybe I just do control space. Just do control space. Okay, I think let me just quickly do control space here, and let me come down to vertical layout. So that's what I love about Eclipse. Yeah, it shows me this code help quite nicely. And now if you come down, you can see there is an aggregation which says content inside the vertical layout. It can see content, and inside the content I can add any number of controls in the vertical layout. Yeah, content. So basically let's create this vertical layout now and just give the ID verti, and I'm just going to add the content one by one. Okay, I'm going to add the content inside this vertical layout one by one. So I say vertical layout dot add content. Yes, and I'm first going to add my matrix layout number one, which is O layout, and then I will add vertical layout dot add content again, and then I'm going to add this next matrix layout inside this. Now can anybody tell me what is that you're going to send to your body of HTML? Are you going to send O layout to the body of HTML? What is that you are going to send to the body of your HTML now? Or are you going to create multiple div elements and add your matrices? No, you just simply send your vertical layout to the body of HTML because it includes everything. Save this. Let's come back, refresh the page, and you can see there are two layouts now. First is your matrix, the first matrix, and then your second matrix, which is 100% page width. Yeah. Right now the button width is quite small as per the label, but you can also increase the button width to 100%. Yeah, this is possible. There must be a width property. So I'm just guessing it, and let's see. You can see this is a whole row button. It has the whole row width. I think that answers your question. What if a control has a quite big length in terms of the size as compared to the other controls? So you can use 100% width of the page and arrange together, club together all these matrix layout or different variety of layouts in other layouts. So that's how you construct, you build your whole application. You build step by step, you incorporate stuff one inside another, and then you design it. So Madhu, hope this answer your question of uh, designing the vertical layout. Now Manoj is saying, can you maximize the screen? Yes, we can. You can see even you maximize, it has still taking the 100% width. It has nothing to do with anything else for that matter because it's responsive. It adapts itself automatically based on device. So if you are running in a small device, a mobile device, wherever you're running, you actually can see it's adapting itself. Yeah. So you can see that's your code for layouts and clubbing them. Hope it helps this answer. And I guess Raj, your questions are also answered. We actually covered one more question uh, which was asked by Madhu, saying that how can we club multiple layouts together? Okay, this is also one more question which was now answered. Yeah, let's proceed now to MVC approach. What is MVC? Why MVC? And what is the use of MVC approach? Very important point. MVC. MVC stands for Model View Controller Architecture. Model View Controller Architecture. Punit, do you have any questions? You unmuted your line.
Yes, Anubhav, I actually pinged you a few questions, but I'm not sure if you're getting your messages or not. I just want to check, like, is it possible to use explicit CSS also along with these elements? Like, if you want to do some spacing, padding,
yes, you can.
Margin.
Yes, you can use it, but in terms of CSS especially, you should not really go and apply CSS. You should try to see if you can handle it all through the layouts, because using layouts you can really get this feel of spacing, arranging the content. You can really do that. But in worst cases you should go, and as far as the UI5 guidelines are concerned, it is not recommended to make use of your own CSS. But as I mentioned, UI5 doesn't become a bottleneck for us. You remember our previous class where we discussed about it? The UI5 doesn't become a bottleneck for the developers. to code.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you can still do that. Let me show you an example of using our custom CSS. So this is what the Fundafox we discussed in last session, where we discussed about Jquery. So you can indeed apply Jquery, you can indeed really apply CSS. So let me show you that right away. I request you to please mute your line, and let me just show you now how can we really achieve that. So I do have this button over here, which I arranged based on really the matrix layout, right? But now I just want, you know, an extra spacing. Yeah. So I have ID for this control as cell 4. So I can just go to the console and I can say var o cell equals to document dot get element by ID, and just gonna get this ID of the control. And you can see we have got the ID for this, and I can really apply this style. But you see, UI5, when it generated the code, it has actually got the ID automatically. See, overflow, hidden, vertical, align, middle. This is the CSS what UI5 renderer has already placed inside the element. So we should not touch it. We should not ideally do this. It is going to be disturbing. And if you want to really, if your application is really to arrange the elements, make use of layout. The way you want, you can really arrange them. It's not a problem. It will give a standard look and feel. But if you try to tweak it, you know, nobody's stopping you, but it won't look more like standard. Yeah, that's the reason why it's not recommended. But still, you know, now let me show you if I just want to add some extra uh, extra padding around. So I can really do that. So ocell dot style dot padding left. I'm just adding more padding left on the side, and let's say I am adding 20 or 200 pixels. And you can see the moment I add 200 pixels, the button really moves from here to the middle of this username and input field. Yeah. So hope this really answer your question of uh, applying the custom CSS. It's really possible. It's completely possible. But we should not do that. We should make use of maximum SAP UI5 APIs, and also we should probably utilize the layout controls. That's why they are there in the game. You can also see, if I really go back and look at the ID of my button control, it's SPID. You remember we have given the ID of our control, button control as SPID. Let me show you again. So here we have given the ID of the control as SPID. So I can really now go back and just say, um, again, var o btn, this is going to be an HTML element object, guys. Whatever we did in the previous chapters of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery is what I'm applying here. This, and I said document dot get element by ID, and then I pass the ID of the control and I get the object of this HTML control, and I say style dot color equals to red. See, the color of my button is changed to red color. I want to change the background color of this button to, let's say, yellow. Oops, I think I did a typo. Background color C has to be capital. Yes. Basic rules of JavaScript. First letter has to be small, next consecutive word, first letter is capital. Background color is yellow. Now you see, is this what you were asking, Puneet? How to achieve all this custom CSS? You can't do that. Okay, this thing you can't do that. The CSS you can't really do that with UI5. UI5 is designed to give you a feel of a standardization, a standard application look and feel. But still it doesn't restrict you to apply your own style. So this thing you can't really change using standard API. A standard API doesn't give you a color option, but it does give you an option to change the type of the button. So there are basically three type of button: accept button, a reject button, and an emphasize button. So there it has a standard theme again. So it comes along with the standard theme. And if you really look at any standard Fiori app, they will never have a button with yellow color. They will either have it in green, red, or the sky color, or the color what you're seeing here, this color. They will never have it in this color. This is your choice. Your customer wanted to be customized. So you're applying custom theming here. Okay. Now, there's one more question here. Last question. Is it a good practice to use matrix layout tables. I read somewhere the UI developer should focus on table-less design. I don't know in which context you really saw that. There can be different requirements and different contexts. Some people may like some way, some people may not like some other way, right? So it completely depends on requirement. If my requirement says I have to align it in vertical and horizontal way in a table form, I have an option of matrix layout. It's there into the system. If it wouldn't have been needed and if it wouldn't have been recommended, why would it be there in the system? It's there in the system for a purpose, and the purpose itself is clear, that somebody or some other day will have a requirement of that kind, and for that to support, we do have this option available, right? Indeed, I'll show you something nice. We can even apply Jquery. Let me show you. So since we are just talking about it, so I am having this button, and the moment user click on this button, an anonymous function is triggering. Now, can anybody tell me, if I want to apply Jquery on this element, what should I write? What should be my selector? Anybody? What will be my selector? Yes, of course, it's $, and inside this I will put my selector, right? You remember the syntax of Jquery in the Jquery chapter. So what is going to be my selector here? It's hash ID. What's the ID of the control? It's SPID. So hash SPID. So now I'm saying select this element from the screen, and let me apply dot fade out. You remember the fade out function, we talked about it. O has to be capital, fade out. Yeah. So this is the function we spoken about, and let me just say 3 seconds. Just hide this control in 3 seconds and then bring it back. So I have a callback function right after this. Yeah. So I just have an anonymous callback function right after this, put curly braces, and now inside this I just say, you can also do this, put a this pointer. This point means current object. So current object on which this effect is applied is SPID. So you can also put $this, which means current object dot fade in. Yeah, this also you can do it. So it will just disappear and appear again. That's what I'm really doing now. Hope all of you remember the Jquery chapter which we had 3 classes back, where we did this same thing, and now I'm bringing it in the UI5 actually. So UI5 doesn't become a bottleneck for the developers. So it's really magical. So I just save this. Now let's come back, and now let me show you. I just uh, refresh the page, and now I'm going to click on the button. Watch carefully this button, Spider-Man. I click on it, and you see it will slowly fade out in 3 seconds and appear in 3 seconds again. Wow. Such nice, amazing things you can club together with UI5 framework, because it doesn't really restricts you. In WebDyn Pro and BSP, you can't do this, because there it's a bottleneck for you. You can't really apply jQuery, you can't apply your JavaScript, CSS, customize CSS. I've never seen a WebDyn Pro button, which I just created some time back for you. Here we had a yellow color button with the red text. I've never seen that in WebDyn Pro. It's not possible because it doesn't support customized CSS. Yeah, right. So these are all the problems with the old technologies, and now we have this with based on open sources completely. Yeah, it's based on open sources. So that's how really it works. So in table design, apart from the grouping under one umbrella, any other advantage, we also getting the alignment properly, right? That's also an advantage, right? So you're getting an alignment here. See, button is aligned with this label, and you have this alignment also done. So that's the power of using this matrix layout. Okay. So can we add also a custom class? Very good point. We can indeed add a custom class, guys. Let me do that. So let me just go ahead and show you. So I'm creating this Spider-Man, and I just say Spider-Man dot add style class, and I'm just going to add a style class called Anubhav. So I'm adding a style class Anubhav, and let me just go on the top inside the heading, and I just create a style here. This is the internal style we discussed in the CSS chapter. Anybody, what will be the selector to apply style based on class name? Anybody? What will be the selector to apply? Dot class name. Perfect answer. Balaji, Shekhar, everybody got it right. So dot Anubhav, curly braces, and now inside this I'm just gonna write here, maybe let's say background color to pink, and I'm just going to say the next thing is color is going to be, let's say, red for the text, and I will also say font family, and I say fantasy, and I just say font weight is equals to bold. Watch this button now. We applied a custom CSS to the SAP UI5 control. So this is a custom CSS class which will be added, and for this custom CSS class Anubhav, I am writing the style code in my HTML file as a internal style. Save this. Let's come back and refresh the page, and now see. You can see now, guys, the button font has changed. It has become bolder, but oops, the color did not come because SAP UI5 overwritten this color. Okay, SAP UI5 overwritten this color. So there is also a way to bring the color, keep the color same way. I will discuss that after discussing MVC, because there we have some hook methods where we can really code it. After the control is rendered on the screen, we can apply this style. That's the right way of doing it rather than this way. Okay. So this is how you can really apply your custom. And if you right click and look at the DOM, in the DOM you must have got the class name. You can see here the class name which is come now inside the DOM is Anubhav. It has got really this class name inside. Yeah, it has got this class name added inside this. But some of the styles are overwritten by SAP UI by BTM. Some of the styles are overwritten by SAP UI5. Yeah, some of the styles. So hope this also answer your question of applying or adding custom CSS class to a standard control. This is possible. Everything is possible, doesn't become a bottleneck. You can design your own button. Okay. You can design your own control. You can create a superb button. A completely new button class you can create. You can design your own controls. That's called custom controls. We will discuss that in custom control chapter. You have to then do everything end to end of your own. You have to design the renderer, you have to design the initialization, everything you have to do it. Events, properties, all that you can really do it. We will come to that custom control chapter later. There's a lot you can do with UI5 as compared to other technologies. Okay, let's come back and discuss MVC architecture. No more questions until we finish this topic now. So otherwise I'll not be able to complete this particular topic. Let's park your questions and we'll pick it up at the end. MVC, Model View Controller Architecture. What is it about? So imagine the world without software. So there was a time when people started building the software, and everybody used to design the software in their own style. Yeah. So Anubhav is designing in some other way, Balaji is doing another way, Shekhar is doing some other way, Puneet is doing his own style of designing, and then, Shailaja is doing it their own style. So everybody started designing the software, and they all were designing with their thoughts, their implications, their best way of thinking. They were applying it inside the software. And ultimately what we saw, it was difficult for me to understand the design which is done by Puneet. And it is difficult for Shailaja to understand what I really did. And then it was difficult for Shekhar to understand what Shailaja did. So there were no standards. They all were doing their own style, their own way of designing. And nobody really know what is the best practice. So what happened, this problem arose, and then there were group of architects, solution architects, they all sat together and they have come up with something called design principles. Okay. They all have sat together and they have observed that this is going completely wrong, and then they all have sat together and come up with something called design principles. What is design principles? Okay. Or what is also known as software design principles. Yes, of course. So we have different design principles available today. So they all sat together, and what they did is they come up with the design principle. And what is a design principle? It's nothing but it is set of rules or style in which we address us. common solution to a common problem. These design principles were also known as design patterns. Okay, so you typically face multiple common problems, like everybody has to use OOPS, so we all have to create objects. So there is a problem. How do we create object? Somebody is writing some different right, somebody is writing different way, another person writing different way of creating object. How can we simplify? If I make a design pattern which only deals with creating an object, okay, creating an object, then actually I'm streamlining it. I've told, okay, this is the way, this is the standard way of creating an object. And if everybody follows that standard, it's quite easy. You know it, I know it. If you do it, it doesn't matter because I know the design pattern. I can really understand what you've written. Yeah. And you also know the design pattern, so you're written in that way. If I write a code following the same design pattern, you can easily understand. That's called design patterns. Addressing to the common problems in the software industry with a common solution. It's called design pattern. And there were three major categories of design patterns: creational, behavioral, and there was, I think, functional. I don't remember last one. Maybe I may be wrong. Behavioral, creational, and functional. Okay, so there were these three categories. I'm susceptible about the third one. Maybe I'll get back to you in the next class. That's not so important for us. So creational design pattern mainly deals with object creation. Behavioral is about object behavior, and functional, how does the object functions and talks to each other. So these were the design patterns which were introduced. So MVC is one of the design pattern, guys. It's called Model View Controller Design Pattern. Because most of the application, what you see, they have UI, user interface, where you need to take input from user and give an output. MVC design pattern. So this was designed to address the problems in a UI based application. Wherever you have screens, wherever you have view or user interface, you actually follow MVC. Now whether you are doing Android development or you are doing WebIDE Pro, or you're doing BSP, or you're doing UI5, or you're doing iPhone, or you're doing Angularjs, you're doing bootstrapping, any framework you use where you have a UI, this is the best design pattern which we all can apply. Model View Controller. So it's not UI5 proprietary, it's not SAP proprietary, it's a common behavior, or it's a common solution for a common problem which is related to UI. Wherever you have a UI application, you can make use of this MVC design pattern. Now, as the name suggests, MVC, it includes three components. One is called model, and is called controller, and is called view. Okay, so model, controller, and view. Okay, so you have controller, you have view, and you have model. So in our engineering days, guys, any subject you consider, whether it is digital electronics, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering, your electronics, applied electronics, analog communication, digital communication, audio video systems, or you look at any engines, combustion, two-stroke, four-stroke engines, any topic which you learned in your engineering, the whole engineering evolves around three things: input, output, and processing. Yeah. Any topic you pick it up from your entire engineering course, all topics, they all talks about same thing: input, output, and processing. That's what exactly here we have. We also added one more flavor to it. It's called data. So you have input, output, you have processing, and you have data. So input output is done through view. That's your IO. Then you have controller, which is responsible for any processing logic. You got to write only the processing logic in this. And then you have the model, which is about your data. That's called MVC architecture. So whenever user provide an input, the view notifies the controller that there is something which has been triggered. View is responsible to notify the controller that something has come up. And then controller does the processing, and then it again sends a response back to the view saying that I have processed the information and this is the outcome. This is the processed data, or this is the processing result. So it notification and results. Similarly, if at all controller need data from the model, it access the data from the model. Yeah. So controller can also access the data from the model, and then the model gives the data to the controller, and then controller again processes that data. So if at all you need the data in the middle, controller can talk to the model. So data is held inside the model. Controller reads the data, it updates the data back to the model. It is also possible to send the data to the view. Yeah. So maybe I just write it from the top. That's much better. These arrows, because I would need something else as well here. Yeah, great. Now, suppose you need to just display the data. You don't want to do any processing. So does it make sense to go via controller? If you don't want to do any processing, so your data is here, your display is here, your output is here, your data is here. Does it make sense to go via controller to just display the data or update the data from the screen? Not required, not necessarily. So that's why there is also an opportunity here, or an option here called binding. It's called data binding. So data binding is a technique where you directly connect your view with the model. This is called data binding, a most important feature of MVC, data binding. And if you understand MVC, you can also become an Android developer or Angularjs developer as well, because it's the same practice used in all the UI technologies. MVC approach. Yeah. So this is what the MVC approach is. So you have model view controller. Model is data, holds all the data for you. Then there can be different variety of data. Then you have view, and then you have controller. And then you have a data binding also done between the view and the model so that they can exchange the data directly. If at all there is no processing required in the middle, we can exchange the data between model and the view directly. Now, as far as the UI5 is concerned, we have actually variety of views available. So as far as the views are concerned, we have different types of view: XML, JSON, or XML JavaScript view, XML view, JSON view, and HTML view. And then you have on the other side the model. There are different variety of models available. They are called JSON, XML, resource, and OData. I will talk about them in detail. I will talk about all the views also in detail. And controller is all the logic. So only the JavaScript is the way to write the controller. There is no other way to write the controller. Only and only JavaScript is, that's the programming language which we have. Client-side JavaScript is what we are using here.
Anubhav, is OData a view?
OData, oh, oops, I think it's a copy-paste typo. It's a model, guys. I've written below the model, yeah? It's a model. These are all the models. Yeah. Thanks for correcting me. It's a model. Okay. So these are all the variety of models we have, and these are all the variety of views we have. Now coming in terms of uses, if you look at any SAP UI5 app, 85% plus is the XML view. Okay. 85%. And then it's my experience, guys, what I'm sharing. 15% is your JS views, and 0% HTML and JSON view. So you know what you need to really focus. But if you look at XML views, there is a very good documentation available on XML views on internet. But there is very, very little documentation available on JavaScript views. That's why in this course, we are targeting JavaScript views more in detail than XML views. I will cover XML views, but most of the screens what we're going to design is going to be the JavaScript views. Now you'll say, oh my God, that's not the expectation. I was coming with this course. No, I want to go with XML. No problem. You go with XML views. Nobody's stopping you. I'll show you how to design XML views, and then you can get started with the XML views. There's nothing into it. It's more like declarative. You copy paste or you write down, it displays the screen. It is nothing critical. What is important is JS, because still there are some projects which are using heavy JS views. Heavily they are using JS views. So if you're stuck, if you gotten into a project where you have JS views, you're gone. Also, I have observed that some of the Fiori apps which are standard are built by JavaScript code, dynamic code. Dynamic JavaScript coding is what they use to build the screen. Yeah. So they don't use XML in that case. They use JS itself to render the screen. So for those screens also, JS view is quite critical from that point of view. So that's why we will talk about more. We go with the tough path, the difficult path is the JS view. So we'll take that path. Then comes the model, the JSON model and the OData. So 80% of the case, it's the OData model what we use, because we need to talk to the server. Yeah, we need to talk to your backend, read Mara, LFA1, KFA1, KNA1, VBAC, VBAP, EKKO, EKPO, EBL, and all these database tables you got to hit. Your data resides in your ERP system. So you got to talk to the backend, and this is the only server-side model we have, OData model. And then remaining, I would say 15% is this. And actually the purpose is different for each model. Yeah, we cannot categorize, which is percentage-wise higher. The purpose of each model is different. I will talk to the purpose. I will talk about the variety of models, their behavior, and the purpose of each model, and then you can make a choice which to use at what place. And of course, for the controller, we only use JS because that's the only programming language we have as far as what browser can directly understand. So with this, it's a wrap on today's class. We will start implementing the MVC model into the UI5 in the next session. Because we had too many questions today, we could not really get started with it. So we just end the session here with the principle, MVC design pattern, understanding these different blocks. And then in tomorrow's session, we will go ahead and embed it and design it, the MVC objects into the UI5 application. So the same application I'm going to convert is an MVC application. So now it's time for your questions. We have another 5 minutes left. So one question, can we relate the real-time example for the MVC? That's what we're going to do tomorrow's session. We are just going to go ahead and make use of MVC real-time in UI5. Okay, that's what we are going to do it in tomorrow's class. So next question from Puneet, can SAP UI5 framework be used with non-SAP systems as well? I did not really get this question. As far as the UI design is concerned, yes, you can make use of SAP UI5 working as a UI, and in the backend you can actually have non-SAP systems as well, because it's based on JavaScript. And once you design the UI using Open UI5 framework, you can actually make it talk to any Java engine also. And that's what I also did in my third course. I have a course on HANA Cloud Platform where I created a Java application as a backend, which exposes OData using Olingo framework. And then on the front end side, I'm designing a UI5 application talking to this Java application in the backend, deployed complete this solution in HANA Cloud Platform. It's a complete cloud solution. So it's not necessarily that UI5 can only talk to the SAP backend. It can talk to any backend, provided that you're talking to OData service. Yeah, you should talk to OData service, and that OData service you can build using .NET, using Java, using Node.js, using ABAP, whatever is your choice. It's your choice. You can really make it work with non-SAP or non-ABAP backend as well. Yeah. Next question from Seleja, how can we know that the client is using SAP UI5 application? Okay, that's a tricky question. So I will give a funny answer for that. If they are hiding you, if they are interviewing you for SAP UI5, they're actually using SAP UI5. That's why they're interviewing you and they're taking you. But yes, the look and feel itself will tell you guys if it is UI5 or something else, you know. You can also look at the DOM, just right click, inspect the element and just look at the DOM and you can see here SAP UI body, which clearly says it's a SAP UI5 application. And when you look at the controls, you will also realize that these controls have class names as SAP M, SAP UI button, you know, all that is SAP UI5. Yeah. So these are all the different ways of actually checking from the front end itself what type of framework they are really using. You can also right click and say view page source, and you can see here there is a UI5 bootstrap, which is just loading the UI5 framework, which means there's some uses of SAP UI5, and this is the library which we are now using in our code to really design the UI elements on the screen. Hope this answers your question, Shaileja. Okay. So first answer holds still good. If I'm hiring, of course, for UI5, I'm interviewing you for UI5. I want you to make work on UI5, not on Node.js, right? Great. With that, it's a wrap on today's class. Feel free. I have also posted some job openings on my website. Please feel free to go there and apply for you if it's relevant for you. There are a lot of job openings coming across the world. I'm just posting some of them. If you're really interested, you can always go ahead and look at it. Yes, in India as well as in USA. I have posted recently, yesterday itself, a job opening on the website, which is for India location on UI5 in Fiori. Though I have also posted some openings in the past for US locations, quite good openings. So this is the one which has come yesterday it's I think for Chandigarh location. So if somebody is interested, please get back to the concerned person. The email IDs you can really find in. So this is for US. It has come on January 23rd. So still it's open. It's for senior developer in Seattle. So it's a full-time opportunity. So guys, it's a good option. There are a lot of openings coming up. You can always strive hard for these things. Quite interesting opportunity. Just learn it and then go ahead for these options. And we do also have interview questions in place. So though they are basic ones, but it's still, if you're attending some interviews, finding it difficult to answer some of the questions, please get back to me. I will answer your questions, and I will also post these questions on the website for all of you to go through. Yeah. With that, it's a wrap on today's class. See you tomorrow at the same time, and we'll start with realizing the MVC into the system. Thank you so much. Have a nice day and goodbye.